Welcome to the hotly anticipated tier reveal video for Gran Turismo 7. This is the first time we've done one of these. We used to do it a lot on F1 side of things, but we're bringing it over to Gran Turismo. We've got four main things to talk to you guys about today. Firstly, we're going to give you guys a refresh on the Group 3 calendar. We've also got the Spec Series calendar to reveal to you guys. We've got a number of tiers to reveal to you, and let's just say Aero League Racing will be bigger and better than ever before. And we've got something new with the Spec Series, um, which we'll talk to you guys about later, as we've had a lot of requests for it to come back and a lot of requests that people have provided for things that we can change about it and make it better. I'm here with Ross. We'll also have Reno King here later on, as well as HTT Pyro to join you guys throughout the live stream.
So we're going to kick off with our Season 9 calendar for our Monday tier. That is the Group 3 calendar for the Group 3 cars that we're racing. We're going to be kicking off on the 8th of May with a sunrise race in Japan at the Suzuka circuit, which is making its first appearance in 3 or 4 seasons here. So we thought that was a really great way to start. And then we'll be moving on to Spain, where we've got Catalonia, and it's going to be the no chicane version of Catalonia, so the old style Formula One layout a week after. After that, we're doing our very first race at Autopolis, which is a great track in Japan, and that's going to be an afternoon race before we move on to the low-speed circuit of Sardinia B. We had Sardinia A couple of seasons ago, and we're going with the slower layout in Italy to reach the halfway point of the season.
And then we go to the very contrasting, well, still Italian track of Monza, a high-speed circuit, which was last used in Season 5. We then go to Dragon Trail Gardens, another circuit where it can rain, and we've had some fantastic races there over the years, last visited in Season 6, before the returning track that won the before the track that won the vote for the returning track. We have the Nürburgring Endurance layout, which is a new layout to Aero League Racing, a new layout to Gran Turismo 7 in general, which combines part of the Nürburgring 24 layout and most of the Nordschleife. And then the sun sets for Season 9 of ALR at Red Bull Ring at dusk on the 26th of June.
Yeah, so a very varied calendar there where it could rain at 5 circuits potentially. So it could end up having a lot of very tricky conditions there. That's Nürburgring, Suzuka, Autopolis, Red Bull Ring, and Dragon Trail. It can rain in all 5 of those races. So the weather radar will need to be on for these drivers when they are tackling these races.
Next up, we have the Spec Series calendar, where you guys will have seen we have four cars that we're going to be using throughout the season. We'll have one car for the first 2 weeks, a new car for the next two, and so on. First off, it will be the Amuse 350Z. The first track that you'll be using that Amuse for will be Road Atlanta, a circuit that we've used previously in the Group 3 series. We thought it would do really well for this Amuse 350Z, which kind of drives similar to a Group 4 car, maybe kind of the Amuse S2000 equivalent of a Group 4 car. Next up, we go for week 2 to the Daytona Oval, which we've never actually used in Aero League Racing. It'll be interesting to see how that one compares to the other Oval on the game.
Yeah, we move on to our second car of the season. It's the Porsche Taycan, which is an electric car, so there won't be refueling rules like in normal races for these two races. The first one we have is the High Speed Ring, which is always a popular choice for the Spec Series with some of these slower cars, more road using cars. And then after that, we will be on the Red Bull Ring, but the short layout.
Something to make note, I think both these tracks it can rain, which will be very tricky in a Porsche Taycan on sports tires. Next up will be the car 3 is the Daihatsu Copen RJ VGT, one of the smallest cars on the game and one of the most entertaining to drive as well. As week 5 will head to Goodwood, which we have seen previously in the Spec Series provide entertaining races. Before week 6 we head to Grand Valley Highway 1, a fantastic circuit used in the Nations Cup, and it's got absolutely beautiful scenery.
And to round out the season, we have a car that hasn't actually been released yet. It will be the brand new Super Formula, so you've got plenty of time to save up to buy it. So this is going to be another 2-round shootout for the championship in the drivers and constructors, and we'll be starting off at Fuji with the chicane, where lots of really close racing has been had previously in Aero League Racing, and then we are going to round out the season with a very popular track, always good to end season in Interlagos in Brazil.
As we've been through the calendar now for the Spec Series, I think there's one more thing we need to tell you guys, and that's about the teams. If Ross, you want to give them guys a little lowdown on what's going to be happening.
Yep, so we had quite a lot of you sign up for Spec Series. We had 40 of you sign up for Spec Series. And instead of excluding some of you because the lobbies aren't big enough, we are doing something a bit different. We're going to be running 2 lobbies, and both of them are going to count towards both the Drivers and the Constructors' Championship. But what we're going to do a bit later on is we're going to split you all up into 5 separate teams, representing 5 different colours where you can base your liveries for these different cars off of. And we have tried to make it as even as possible by seeding you all. So that's going to be one massive team championship where you can all discuss and choose which driver should race in which lobby, quite similar to what we're doing for Nations Cup to try and get a competitiveness going in the teams championship as well.
It also means if there's any of these 4 cars that you don't particularly like and don't want to drive, then there will be other people who can cover for you from your team, and you won't be losing out on the constructors title necessarily. So I think apart from that, we're ready to move on to our bottom tier placements.
So we're going to kick off our placements with our 7th tier. So we've expanded by 2 tiers this season. And this tier is going to have lots of familiar faces with the old tier 5. So we're kicking off with D-Dubs. He has been a solid driver for the last few seasons for us. He managed to get some decent results last season, so we'll be hoping to build on that. Moving on, we have another seeded driver who is Jezza Like You. He was in tier 3, I think, and he's made the move down for season 9. We now have JP, who's been with us since the beginning of GT7, is another seeded driver. He was in the Toyota Supra last season, so we'll be hoping to choose a car that's more to his taste this time. Next up, we have Killer Krilla, who is our Finnish driver who joined and actually won the Constructors title in tier 4 along with the dude. He will be hoping to have a push for the drivers in tier 7 this season. And finally, we have another tier 3 driver making the drop down, T Nevitt, who had showed some good pace last season, but did struggle in the races. So hopefully this tier is more to his liking and he can start kicking on. So those are the top 5 seeds, and that basically means that they can't team up with each other, but they can team up with anyone else on the list of full-time drivers. So we're going to move on to the unseeded drivers and start with CLR Marble, who is an American driver, also was in tier 5 last season. As was Davi, who raced in the AMG last season, another American driver. And we have our host for tier 7 is Danger, our Irish driver who was in the WRX last season. We've got another American driver in tier 7, so this is really turning out to be an American heavy tier. For FXN, Parker, who is also racing in our F1 leagues and was new last season to our GT7 leagues. And after him, we've got everyone's favourite driver. He's been with us since the start of GT7 as well, is Quackhouse. Showed some real improved pace last season and we'll be hoping to kick on and keep improving in Tier 7. We've got a driver next, Reese Foot Racing, who was in the Jag last season in his first season with GT7. He is joined by Super Cracker, who joined later on in the season and showed some fairly decent pace, getting some top 10 finishes in Tier 5. Making her return will be Happy Dragon, who was with us every season since the start of GT7, but took most of last season out. So it's nice to see her back. And then we have some new drivers. So it'll be really interesting to see what their pace is like compared to these guys. We've got Fat Ban, Pulsating Clouds, and Span Bakerton. So I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but that's what I'm going to call it. So moving on to the reserves, we have 5 reserves for this tier. We have Dazadance, Bad Robot, and Lord Hams, who are all brand new drivers to GT7. We have Mike, who is an ALR GOAT in F1, and he's come back after a few seasons away for GT, so it's nice to see him back. And we have Trems, who made his debut last season, and I think took some time out to get a little bit better at the game. So we are excited to see what he can do. Looking through this list, I think it's going to be quite a tight season between this group of people. I think the pick for the championship might come down to Krilla and T Nevitt, but I think I'm going to go for Krilla after I've seen some decent drives from him in the Nations Cup. So I think that might just give me enough to push him over the edge for me. But there's one driver who I think could be a bit of a dark horse. I think we're going to see some real improvements from Quackhouse this season. He's improved his racing setup, which I'm sure will improve his performance as well over time once he gets used to it. And it would be really nice to see him take a few wins and maybe do a little title challenge of his own. But yeah, Krilla is my overall pick for champion here. So yeah, that wraps up tier 7, and we'll move on to tier 6.
Thank you, Ross. So next up we have tier 6, which is another new tier filled with a lot of drivers from tier 4 and 5 last season. There's no shame in dropping down a tier, especially in the lower tiers where you've got a lot of new drivers coming in ahead of you guys. First up, we've got Gin Tonics, who came third in tier 5, a very strong contender for the title this season with 2 wins last time out. Next up, it's BD, who has been on very good form in the Nations Cup after his drop from tier 4. Then we've got T. Smithy, who came fourth in Tier 5 last season. He's been around a while in Aero League racing, and he got 1 win last season. Could this be the time he gets his inaugural title, though? Moving on to someone who hasn't been here anywhere near as long, we have Vidvia, who raced for 1 week last season in Tier 4 with a P8 best finish. Next, we've got Xbody, who had P6 as his best finish. Next up, we've got Xbody, who had P6 as his best finish last season in Tier 4. Then we've got Baggy for Life with 1 podium last season. Very, very quick driver on his day, but inconsistency is the plague for him. Next up, we've got Dr. SD, who showed some fantastic improvements last season, becoming a solid point scorer in Tier 5. Millsy will be looking to improve on his poor season last time out, but he had a great final week last time out, which would suggest the new handling update does suit him a little bit better. So maybe one to look out for this season. Next up, we've got Hex DJ, who was a solid performer in Tier 5 last time out. Then we've got Reset Blake, and we've got Reset Bladecat, another driver who struggles with inconsistency in his driving. He did manage 1 podium last time out, and if he can improve on his consistency, he'll be a force to be reckoned with in Tier 6. Next up, we've got Rody, who managed a best of P4 last time out. He'll be dropping down to Tier 6. Then we've got Stuart, who was probably the best of the rest in Tier 5 last season. He showed good improvement throughout the season and became a regular point scorer. The final 4 drivers you see here are Dirty Frog, M. Jones, Mr. Obvious, and Staber55, all new drivers to Aero League racing, apart from Staber, who has raced previously in our F1 leagues. In terms of reserves, we've got 4 new drivers to GT and 1 returning driver, which is Madman Jan. He struggled last season, did actually manage to score 1 podium, but 70% of his finishes are outside the top 10, which is not good enough from a driver of his caliber. We've got OG Moose King, Saeed El Falassi, the Cisco Kid, and Mike Michaels rounding off the tier. In terms of my personal predictions, you will see a full list of all the admins and helpers predictions at the end of the stream, so you can see what we're submitting for the ALR Predictor Challenge, which we're running yet again. For me personally, I think Staber55 is my pick for the title. I would say he's a bit of a dark horse, maybe not quite a favorite in most people's books, but he is going to be up there in my opinion. I think he'll sort of adjust well and do really well this season. Another 2 drivers who I want to pick out as dark horses are Reset Bladecat and Xbody. I think these 2 guys do have potential, and it'll be great to see if they can continue and show a bit of improvement from last season. Next up, we've got Tier 5, which will be brought to you by Pyro.
All right, hello, it's Pyro here, and we're going on to Tier 5 now. We're ramping up a little bit. So to talk about Tier 5, I have to start with the seeds. I got 5 of those. And most of these guys are guys that I know of, have raced about before, and I'm actually rather interested to see how they fare this season. So in terms of the seeds, you got Hurricane, driving, it was in Tier 3 last season, got demoted a couple of times, obviously. He's probably looking for a little bit of revenge after not the cleanest of drives in Tier 3 last season. Goblin looked to pose a threat at the end of last season. He came on the podium twice at Dragon Trail. Obviously, that's post-update, and we'll see what he can do in a different car. Lego, also a seed. Also looking to bounce back from an incredibly poor season in the DBR9, especially when his teammate ended 3rd. So he's maybe looking for a rebound season here. Story Fun is another one of those where it's go big or go home, and it could be an extremely interesting one for the season as a whole. And the final seed is Chills. He obviously took the season off last season and looks to return. Maybe getting away from that Corvette a little bit might be a good idea for him this season. For the rest of the tier, You got Font, who been in a little bit of limbo. He's was towards the middle of tier 4, middle top of tier 4 last season, I believe. And maybe looking to add a tier 5 title to his name. You got Fuji as well, could be a surprise package in the tier. Jamie looking to make some actual good moves, since his career moves have been consistent with the Renault he picked 2 seasons ago. And you got Juho, who's, again, another one of those in tier 3 last season who just really didn't hit the mark where we thought he might have. And I think it was around 10th last season. He didn't really gel with the tier so much. Klaus, however, is an interesting one. Joined in the middle of last season, had a pretty solid run in tier 3, made a couple of mid-card finishes, and quite honestly, my dark horse to win this entire tier. If he gets the right car with the right sort of run, he could make a real good run of the title. Polty, next one in line, also demoted and looking to make looking for a good career move instead of a Renault as his back with his ex-teammate from a couple of seasons ago. Omerda, also in the tier, another one of those guys that hasn't raced an awful lot, and the last time I saw him race, he kind of mixed up the strategies a little bit, thought the rules were a little bit different, so maybe a lot to learn from him. And then you've got Perry, who I don't awfully know a lot about, could be in for a shout. And then the new guys, so Regenix, Aurak, and Mr. Papants, also looking to show us what they can do this season in their debuts. And then the reserve drivers, you've got Amy, who was in tier 3 last season and unfortunately hindered by the car choice her Nismo eventually had, and was not dealt a nice hand whatsoever. Then you've got Bloodwave, who was originally a full-time driver and dropped to reserve because he was too busy on F1. And he's still finding a way to bottle every single chance he gets there. Then you've got Boomer, who's seemingly stuck with the reserves at the moment, trying to sort everything out there. And what's Gucci, who was my teammate for the half of last season and didn't really survive all that well in the tier realistically, and tier 5 might be better suited for him. And that basically sums up tier 5. Overall, I think Goblin would win it in my opinion, but I'm really interested to see how this one unfolds. And I guess that means we're on to tier 4 now. Let's ratchet up another notch.
So, my name is Reno King. I'm walking you through Tier 4 for Season 9 in Aero. First up, we got BO2603. He finished P12 in Tier 2 last season. He got close to the podium a couple of times. He's been a long time with us. Who knows what he's gonna do in Tier 4 this season. Maybe he can even get a couple of podiums now. Maybe he can fight for the win. It's all there for him. We have Pyro. He's one of the GT7 GOATs, I may say. He's one of the helpers. Interesting fact is that he has 100 plus races without a win before finally breaking it last season in Tier 3, where he finished 4th. He won the second race, and after that he didn't get a second win, so I really hope for him that the streak isn't back on again. Next up we got Oscar x Bacon. Oscar finished P2 last season in Tier 4, so he's staying in Tier 4. Last season was his first season, so who knows, maybe second time lucky. Next up we got Turbo Boy. Turbo Boy finished P6 in Tier 4 last season. He got a couple of P2s, so he got pretty close to the top of the table. Number 5 is Yeah Right. Yeah Right got a couple of P1s last season. He was only 6 points off of P2 Turbo, we just spoke about, so he's one of the top guys, I think one of the favorites. He's gonna have a nice battle with Turbo again, so who knows, maybe he's gonna be on top of him this season. Number 6 is Andres J21. Andres got P5 in T4 last season, so as you're starting to notice, a lot of these guys come from Tier 4, they're staying in Tier 4. They're all gonna be looking to finish higher than they did before. Andres didn't get any wins last season. Maybe now it's the time to change that. He, of course, doesn't want to be breaking the streak that Pyro set. Next up, Kerpale. Kerpale finished P6 in Tier 3 last season. He got 2 wins. Now he's been moved to Tier 4. He could be a favorite. He's gonna be a force to be reckoned with, I think. Next up, we got Mr. Berserk. Mr. Berserk has been a long time with us. He's a Dutch guy. He finished P2 in Tier 5 last season. So he's gone up a tier. He finished P2. He had a great season there. He only got 17 points short to win Tier 5 last season. It's only because of a very good season from Black Widow. Next up, we got Pasty87. Pasty got a P4 in Tier 4 last season. He got a couple of podiums. He even managed to get 2 wins. So he really did well last season. But he's gonna be looking to stop. We got Sick Individuals 8. Last season he didn't race. He mainly did comms last season, so he's gonna be looking for a really strong comeback. He wants to come back on the grid and have a good season. Maybe get a couple of podiums, a couple of wins. Next up, Skittles McNest 7. My good friend Skittles. This man, if he practices, he's gonna be quick. So let's hope he does the car choice right. He gets a good car, he gets in the groove, and then he's gonna be one of the contenders for sure. Next up, D9 Ball. Funnily enough, he finished P9 last season in Tier 4. However, he joined later on in the season. He joined pretty late. So to manage to get a P9 after a short time, that's gotta be a great result for him. So who knows what he can do with a full season. Next up, we got Adam Millsy. Adam Millsy is new on the GT7 grid. However, he's been in F1 quite a long time. He's now making the switch to GT racing. Next up, we got Begitos Lapito. He undoubtedly has the best name in Tier 4. But he's also new. He's a new driver. Just as the next two guys, Crasher 1997. Let's hope he doesn't live up to his name. And G2 Hostile. Those got to be some dark horses there. Who knows, maybe one of those 3 guys can really hit the ground running and come away with a really good result in their first season. If one of them can't make it, we got a couple of reserve drivers, Black Charizard, Nismo and CRM Doodle. So for my top picks in this tier, it's hard to look past Oscar Bacon. He finished P2 last season. It was his first season. He's gonna be a favorite. I of course have to say that Skittles is gonna be my dark horse. He's my dark horse for the season. All in all, I think we have a really strong grid here, and I'm looking forward to seeing who comes out on top.
For the next part of the tier reveal, we have the Spec Series Team Draw. This is something new that we're trying out, that we actually tried out in the Nations Cup, and we had some really good sort of feedback from you guys with it. And we've got drivers grouped into 8 pots of 5 drivers, and we'll be running 5 teams of 8. And in each race day, 6 drivers will drive for each team, split across 2 lobbies. So we'll have 15 drivers in each lobby.
Yeah, so we've split everything up into 8 pots. So we had 40 drivers sign up. We had a mixture of people who wanted to race full-time and as reserves. So we've done a quick allocation of the pots based on pace. So the first 4 pots are all of the full-timers. So pot A has the drivers that you'd expect to see in Tier 1, all the way down to pot D, where you're looking at like Tier 4 drivers, essentially. And we're doing the same for pots F, G, and H for the reserves. And then we've got 1 pot that has a mixture of both in. So we've done this to try and keep the 5 different teams quite even. And what we're going to do is we're going to be running 2 lobbies at the same time. Each team will submit 3 drivers into each lobby each week, and you can decide who's racing between you. And both lobbies will count towards the Drivers' Championship, but also the Constructors' Championship as well, which is going to be this team's championship that we're trying out.
So yeah, overall we'll have a massive league full of 40 different drivers for the drivers, and what was it, 5 different teams, 1 driver from each pot, effectively. So yeah, it'll be random teams for this season, and we've got a little draw, so you guys can have your Champions League style draw up here. So you see we've got all pot 1 drivers here, and we're going to be spinning it each time, and then you'll see the the hot screen will be sort of labeled with each driver getting the color of the team that they are joining. So you can see we've got 5 drivers here from pot 1, all in the colors of the potential liveries that they could be joining. First spin will be on blue team, followed by red team. Next spin will be on the yellow team, followed by green team, and then the 5th spin is the white team. So the first spin.
And what colour is this for? Red team.
Yep. No, blue team. Blue team.
So joining the blue team is going to be CMP.
There we go. We can remove him from the wheel. That's very loud. I don't know how loud that's going to come across.
I didn't hear anything.
Remove him from the wheel. And next up, joining red team.
Okay, red team up next. Ooh, it's just landed on Owen.
Yep. Next up, we have yellow.
Okay, Mushlat is on the yellow team.
Then for the green team, we have Elite Spectre, which will mean Kep will be on the white team,
Kep
sorry.
will be on the white team, yeah. Kep nearly won one of the last spec series we did when he first joined the league, didn't he? But I think Iggy beat him out in the end.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so who's going to be on blue with CMP?
Yeah, this is the Pot B drivers we
Pot
forgot
B,
to
yeah.
mention as
So
I
we got
clicked a bit too soon.
Isaac, who raced in our last spec series, so he's first up with CMP. In red team with Owen will be Reno.
There we go.
We'll be very happy to make deliveries, I guess, for the red team.
Hopefully. Next up in yellow team with Mushalat, we have a very close decision, but it's the dude.
Okay, green team with Elite Spectre is going to be his usual teammate Takos, so that could be quite interesting.
I actually love that. It's not rigged, I promise.
Yeah.
And then last up, we have the white team, which will be Alex will be joining Kepler.
Yeah, so we have pot 3 here now, and the first spin again is going to be for blue. So this is going to be who's going to be teaming up with CMP and Isaac. And it looks like it's going to land on Claus, K11, who's been pretty quick in the Nations Cup races so far, so he could be a good little addition to that team.
Yeah, next up we have the red team with Owen and Reno King, 2 drivers who are very
Maybe
experienced in
Aero as well. No.
ALR. It's Arthazad, a brand new driver.
Yes, a new driver, so it'll be interesting to see what his pace is like against these guys. Okay, yellow team with Moosh and the dude. Looks like it's going to go to DDK.
Unfortunately,
He's another really quick driver.
we can't have an all Netherlands green team, unfortunately.
No. So which is next? So partnering with Elite and Tapos, looks like it's going to be Tap Shooter. We'll be pretty happy with that. He's with 2 pretty quick drivers there.
And that leaves joining white team with Alex and Kepler, we have Pyro. And we move on to the 4th pot, pot D. We've got 5 more drivers who signed up for full-time seats, I believe. First up in the blue team with CMP, Isaac, and Claus, we have JC Race 80.
JC Race, my Belgian teammate in Nations Cup. Okay, so for red team, this will be with Owen, Reno, and our new driver, Faxad. It looks like it's going to be Skittles. Reno's going to love that.
What a team there. Next up, we have the yellow team. Let's see who this will be with the Dude, DDK, and Mushalat.
And it's going to be Font as well. Font and the Dude had a bit of a rivalry, being 2 reserves in Tier 4 last season.
Now they'll be teaming up on track.
Yeah, green team looks like it's going to go to Steofan.
And that leaves, last but not least, we have Fitzinho, a new driver, teaming with Alex, Pyro, and Caplero.
Okay, on to pot E, I think we're on. Yeah, pot E.
Yeah, that's correct.
Starting with blue again. We land on OG Moose King, who's a new guy as well. So just like JC, 2 new guys in this team so far.
Then we have the red team with Owen, Reno, Arthur, and Skittles. We have It's BD96.
It's BD. He actually won Nürburgring Nordschleife last season for Tier 4. Okay, yellow team. Joining Font is his F1 team mate, I think teammate, or at least he races with him, Saeed, who's also new to the game.
So far in this spin, we've actually had 2 of them have chosen the same colour as it shows, and it's actually 3 as
Green
we've got
team
green
is gonna
team
last
with
on our border.
O'Morda.
I think that's 2 Irish people on the green team as well. So we've
It
got 2 Dutch and
is.
2 Irish. And then the white team is going to get T Nevitt.
Next up, we have Pot F, which is the first of our reserve drivers. Pot, you can see some really stacked out names in this pot, which could really boost up some of the team's points. So joining the blue team, we have
Is
BX
it going to
Roy.
be?
No,
No, it's
it's
actually
Jack.
Jack. So Jack is joining CMP, Isaac Claus, JC Race, and Moose King. And then moving on to the red team, it's Gerbo, who won quite a few races in Tier 2 last season.
Then we have joining the yellow team. Is it going to be BR4? It's going to be BR4 joining the yellow
Okay.
team.
Yellow team's starting to look stronger now.
It is indeed.
Okay, green team.
It's going to be the green driver in the form of Slimmy Cam, which leaves BX Royal to join the white team, which is looking like a very solid team.
BX Row with White and Kepler. Moving on to pot G now is our second pot of reserve drivers. Starting with the blue team again. And the blue team get DB Elite, who I think he's won titles in ALR and GT before, and GT Sport, is that right?
Yeah, he won season 3, which was in the Super Formula car, which is actually coming back for this season of the Spec Series.
Nice. And Hims joins the red team.
Very good driver there, joining some very big names. Now we move on to the yellow team with Just Filthy.
Yellow team looking good as well. Actually, they're all looking pretty even. Quite an even spread now. Green team, we get a new driver, CCK.
He's looked very good in his sign-ups, which leaves Riaba joining the white team.
Okay, and now we're at our last pot of reserves. So let's get going. We've got blue. So the last person to fill team blue is going to be Trocker.
He's got some experience driving some blue cars in the Nations Cup for Team Scotland, and yeah, he'll be keeping that colour on his livery.
Okay, joining the red team is going to be O'Leary.
Very nice. Bunch of names there on Team Red.
And now yellow team next. So the final person on team yellow is going to be Hurricane. Okay, we've got green. Is it going to be green that it lands on? No, it looks like Turbo Boy, who's been really quick in Nations Cup as well.
He'll be one to watch out for in the Spec Series. And finally, on the white team, we've got Yeah Right joining that team.
Oh, Irishman. So what you should be able to see on screen right now are the drivers with all the colours that they're allotted to. What we're going to do is create separate chats in Discord for you all to talk to each other, strategize, create liveries together, and decide which of the 6 of you are going to be racing in each week.
Well, that was interesting. Well, back to what you've been waiting for, Tier 3. Pyro here. I'm going to talk you through it. And as you can see on the screen, got a list of 16 drivers here, all looking to win Tier 3. Start off with the seeds. So first up is Geordie, reigning Tier 3 runner-up, looking to add a title to his name. Been a while since he has been in that position. And he got some fierce competition with him this time. The other seeds being Reno, coming back after a very, very long time away. Samp Glove, who ended last season off in an extreme run of form in that Suzuki, and nobody saw that one coming, winning a couple of the races to end off in Deep Forest and in Dragon Trail. And you got Funk, who is my personal pick to win the tier. Had a couple of races with him before. He's one of those that is go big or go home most of the time. So him's Also, another one that would be up there for rounding off the seeded drivers. Then after the seeded drivers, you got Andy, the resident villain of the server, in the eyes of most people. And you got DDK, who's seemingly the dark horse. I know people have talked about him possibly winning this tier as we go along. Now, next is Diablo, and Diablo's my dark horse for this tier. I think, especially when you look at some of the recent performances he's been putting in, can't put too much weight on the Nations Cup, but had a good run there. Elian came third in tier 3, came directly behind Geordie, so he's maybe looking to right some wrongs in the tier this season. Then you got O'Leary, who was mostly fighting with myself last season. I'm interested to see whether or not he can maybe take that step up in what might be considered a harder tier compared to the tier we were in last season for tier 3. And then you got Major, who, again, another one who was fighting with me, but also missed the last 2 races and could be a dark horse as well, if you're thinking of that nature. Then into some of the other ones that may have come down from the tier above. Mighty is one of those who was in tier 2 but didn't fare all so well the last 2 races. Then you got Ross, and now Ross is the interesting one because he could be completely washed by the end of this. He's coming off of a heavy defeat to his teammate Jack from last season, looking not to make it 2 from 2. And then you've got Tap Shooter as maybe someone who might finish a mid-card in this tier, I reckon. Had some good results in tier 2, had some off days, and we'll see which one of Tap shows up. And then the new drivers to the tier, Alex, who looked pretty promising in his time trial time, and up as well, looking to spring a surprise or 2. And then the reserve drivers for this tier is Trocker, Toronto, and Woozy. Woozy, another one of those that came down from the tier above, looking add some silverware to his name this season.
Tier 2 for Season 9. Up first we have Howling Jimmy J. He is a Tier 1 driver from last season. He joined pretty late, but he managed to get a very decent result. So coming up in Season 9, it's gonna be his first full season. Who knows what he can do there. Next up we got Just Filthy. Filthy is another Tier 1 driver from last season. He came P12 there. He got a couple of decent results, but nowhere near as good as he can be. I've raced with him in Season 6. I know he can be quick. So who knows, he might come back and take some revenge. Next up we have Elixin Jack. Elixin Jack is one of our Patreon legends, I can say. He's a great guy. He finished P2 in Tier 2 last season, just behind Owen. Who knows where he's gonna end up. He actually was the Constructor Champion last season as well, together with Ross, if I remember correctly. But it's got to hurt that he finished P2, so he'll be looking to get that P1 this time around. Next up we have Slimmy Cam. Slimmy is a Tier 1 driver. He's a pretty regular Tier 1 driver, I must say, but he has a couple of bad seasons. Last season he quit halfway through, so he's gonna be looking to get some miles under his belt, get a good feel for it again. If he manages to hit the ground running, then who knows what he can be capable of. The Dude 360. The Dude is currently lighting things up in the Nations Cup. He's a Canadian. He's doing great right now. He actually won Tier 4 last season with 6 fastest laps, and 2 times he got pole position there. So yeah, he's been lighting it up in Tier 4, and who knows what he can do in Tier 2. Next up we have Chris A. I kind of want to call him Iggy Light. He is a Austrian driver. He is in Tier 2. He was Tier 2 last season as well. He finished P3 there. He got 3 wins, 3 fastest laps. He actually missed a race last season there, while P1 and 2 didn't. So who knows what could have happened there last season. He's gonna get a shot at the title again this season though in Tier 2. Next up we have Elite Spectre. Elite Spectre is a Dutch guy. He finished P15 in Tier 1 last season. So he's coming off a pretty bad season, to be fair. Horrible actually, but to be fair, he didn't have the best of cars. But neither did the next guy, Isaac Mid 02. He was a low flyer in Tier 1 last season as well. He was racing in the Suzuki VGT. Like I said, also a bad car. So I think these two are really looking to improve again to get back to the podium positions. We'll see what they can do. Next up, we have Black Widow. In Tier 5 last season, she absolutely lit it up there. 12 fastest laps, 4 pole positions. I mean, it's as dominant as you can get, I think. So she deserves a big move up. So next season she'll be in Tier 2. Who knows what she can do there? Will she drown? Will she do great? Who knows? Next up we have RDO, 1998. I know this term gets thrown around a lot. I think you've heard it a couple of times already, but he must be the undisputed ALR GOAT. He has been a regular Tier 1 driver, but with Tier 1 getting more and more competitive, it's really hard to do well there. It's fair to say he and the next guy, Simon K, have been struggling there pretty badly. They both come off two pretty bad seasons. Um, they're both GT7 helpers. They're both great guys. I'm really looking forward to them doing well in Tier 2 next season. So next up is Kinsey. We have another champion in Tier 2 actually. He was P1 in Tier 3 last season. He had a 37 point lead, so pretty great season for him. He had 6 fastest laps. He moved up to Tier 2. Who knows, maybe he can retain the title he got in Tier 3. Next up we got Typos Games 44. I think I know who he refers to with 44, but oh well. This guy really made me sweat in Tier 2 all the way back in Season 6. He's a really great driver. He's coming back from Tier 1 last season. He had pretty mediocre season there. But if he's gonna light it up like he did in Season 6, then he's gonna be a great driver in there. Next up we have CCK823 Kush and also Syndra. They're both new drivers. So I can't really say a lot about them. Who knows what they're gonna do there. I've taken a look at their time trial times. Those got them in Tier 2. They're looking good. It's unknown. Who knows? Maybe they can surprise us all. We don't have a 16 driver, but we have actually live commentary. Every Monday, Vexed Man is gonna do live commentary for Tier 2. So that's absolutely epic as well. On the reserves we have DB Elite, Ryaba Agar, and Lepa. Let's hope that DB can keep those dive bombs behind. So, now it's time to talk about the favorites and the dark horses in this tier. If I look at this grid, it's a really tight grid. It's gonna be really close. But if I have to pick a favorite, I'm gonna go with Jack. He finished P2 in the same tier last season. He's gonna be looking to win it all this season. I of course can't look past guys like RDO, Simon, Typos, Elite, the dude. I mean, I can name the whole grid again. It's just gonna be so close. The dark horse for me, if I'm gonna have to pick somebody, I'm gonna say Black Widow. She won tier 5. It's 3 tiers lower. But who knows what she can do here.
And last but not least, we have the Tier 1 placements for Season 9. Is this the strongest Tier 1 grid we've ever had? As we begin with BX Royal, he came second last time out, finishing just 11 points behind Iggy, the champion, despite missing a week. He'll be looking to go one better this time and get the title.
Next up, we have NLR Sick Boy, who comes back to Tier 1 after a season and a bit out. He won our inaugural Race of Champions a couple of seasons ago as well. So he will be hoping to put up a title challenge as well, and he's another seed.
Next up, we have defending champion, the mighty Iggy, who is actually back-to-back champions, 3 times title winner in ALR, and he'll be looking to add a 4th to the cabinet. and be the first ever to go 3 times in a row.
Next up, we have Distinct Zimmy, who made his debut last season and won in his first season in Tier 1. So he definitely has a lot of pace in him. And perhaps with a bit of a faster car this time around, he'll be able to put up a title challenge.
Next up, we have Viking Dog, a new driver to ALR. Actually, the only driver who was actually seeded out of all the new drivers. We don't really know too much about him, apart from he's Italian and has known Caplero in the past.
Moving on to the non-seeded drivers, we're starting with BR4, who is actually a former Tier 1 champion. Hasn't managed to have a win in the last couple of seasons, so he'll be hoping for a better fortune this time around.
Next up, we have CMP23, who started life out in ALR as a Tier 2 driver where he won his first 2 races. Since moving up to Tier 1, he came 6th last season with a bunch of podiums to his name.
Up now is Zerbo6, who is the first driver to come up from Tier 2. He, again, was new last season and won multiple races, including a couple of double wins on the same night. He had multiple fastest laps and pole positions, more than any other driver in Tier 2. So I'm expecting him to get some good results this time around in Tier 1.
Next up, we have Caplero GT, who I believe is a previous Tier 1 race winner. He has recently switched to wheel, so we'll be looking to see if he has the same pace over there.
Up next is Reo Chang, who finally made his debut on the very last race of the season, outperforming a lot of the regulars and nearly getting a win for himself. So another dark horse to watch out for in Tier 1.
Next up, we have Lars TO7, who had a very, very solid season last time out. Showed some incredible pace on his day, just didn't quite have the consistency to quite challenge BX or Iggy over the course of a full season.
Up next is another driver who's always getting consistently good results. Nearly got a win last season in the Ford GT. That is Mackie's Gherkin, who was Iggy's teammate last season as well. Managed to get some good results, but unfortunately, that car kind of failed him towards the end of the season, and he fell down the standings a little bit.
Next up, we have Mushalat, who's been with us for the entirety of our GT7 cycle. He was very, very strong in Season 4 and actually was many people's picks for the title that time out. Since then, he fell off a boil a little bit, but he's started to recover his form going to P8 last season with some really, really good results, especially in Week 7 where he came second at Deep Forest.
Next up, we have Owen Williams, who spent only one season in Tier 2 and actually won it in a very unfancy Mitsubishi car. So he's back in Tier 1 again and has the opportunity to get himself a much better car for this season to put up the challenge up against these quicker guys.
Next up, finally, we have Svan de Speck, who won a race last time round, I believe, in the Nürburgring. So we'll be looking to see if he can do the same again at the Nordschleife. He didn't attend too many races last season due to some external issues, but hopefully he'll be able to attend more and maybe be fighting for the top 5 come end of the season.
And we have 2 reserve drivers for Tier 1 for the start of the season. They are both brand new drivers. They are Old Zach and Distinct Marco. So both of them put in pretty impressive time trial times. Marco actually went quicker than Iggy in his time trial time. So he could, when he races, spring a big surprise and end up on the podium. But we will see. Both of them seem to have bags of potential and should feel right at home in this tier.
And in terms of commentary, we've got the fantastic Weber Red 5 returning as always. He'll be blessing you guys on the mic every Monday from the 8th of May onwards.
Okay, so who do I reckon is going to be the title winner? I've got to go for BX Royal. He won 7 times last season, so he has to be my pick. If he can turn up every round, I reckon he's got it in the bag.
I think for me, for the favourite, you can't look past Iggy. Whilst BX might have a little bit more pace outright, I think Iggy has the experience of winning titles, and I think that will take him over the line as it comes down to the wire.
Yeah. Dark horse for me, I'm going to go for... Ooh, it's difficult. Maybe Reo-chan. He only raced once, and he did really, really well. So maybe with a bit more preparation, he could spring a surprise on some of these guys.
I was going to say Ryo-chan myself as well, but I think if I have to say someone else, it feels a bit weird to pick a seeded driver as a dark horse, but I would say Zimmy if I can't say Ryo-chan, but I do think Ryo-chan is a really good pick as a dark horse. So that will be everything for your placement videos. I hope you guys are happy with how it went. I hope you guys are happy with your tiers that you've been placed in. You will be slowly getting the access to the tiers in your chats as we go out throughout the night. Obviously, there's the Nations Cup on later today if you guys want to go tune into that. If we do have a stream up, I'm not actually sure just yet. You will see the helper team's predictions for the title favorites, as we are running the same competition that we did for the Nations Cup, where if you pick correctly, someone who finishes in the top 3 of each tier, you will be in with a chance to win £20. You have to pick all 7 tiers correctly, and you can see the helpers' choices on your screen right now. But apart from that, that's all from us tonight, and I hope you have a good race later on. See you, everyone.